Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 26 of the Best Made Weddings podcast. I'm Alan Chitlik, and I have taken over this week's podcast to introduce you to two specialists who are going to educate you about blogging. First, I want to introduce you to wedding planner Lori Losee. Lori, can you tell us a little bit about your business?
Yeah, so I started Elegant Affairs back in 2005. Originally, this was supposed to be a fun summer part-time job. I had a young son who will now turn 16 in 2 months. And so this has grown to what it has become and with additional staff. And we are just super excited about what's going on. We're looking forward to 2021. And 2022. But yeah, so I love doing wedding planning, and it's been a passion of mine ever since I got married in 2003.
That's awesome. And our other guest is a man named Reid Johnson. Now, Reid, you are a first-time guest on this podcast. Is that correct?
That is. I'm a first-time guest on the Best Made Weddings podcast.
Great. Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yeah, thank you very much, Alan, for hosting this today. I enjoy your XFL Markcast shirt. Thank you very much for that. xflshow.com/merch. We are Best Made Videos, wedding videography company, live streaming, corporate video production. And I invest a lot of time in social media stuff and blogging and website stuff and content creation, like this podcast and the other podcasts we do for wedding stuff. So I am very excited to talk about all this today. Thank you for having me.
Well, you're welcome. I'm glad to have selected you. Now, Lori, maybe we can start with you. Can you talk a little bit about where blogging began for you and how it fits into your business?
I think it was really organic in terms of more of educating clients. I think when we would do initial consultations and throughout the wedding planning process, there was a lot of questions that brides and grooms and parents had. And sometimes we just didn't have enough time to kind of go back to the basics in planning meetings. And so I would say blogging for me really got started probably the last 3 or 4 years, and really heavily probably the last 2 to 3, especially with lovely COVID and trying to educate everybody, especially here in Washington State, since our rules have changed several times and quickly. And so it's getting that information out to the masses in one single platform. So that's kind of where we look at from blogging. I try to be consistent in doing at least one blog post a week. Obviously, we kind of do Tuesdays, we do kind of a helpful hints, tips, tricks kind of thing to kind of educate, again, couples. And then usually Thursdays is reserved for weddings. We have been very slow on that and the amount of weddings we've had. So we're kind of trying to pace it out. So once we really kick off 2021, hopefully and soon, you'll start seeing that more on a regular basis. But I think for me, a lot of people resonate with the real weddings because they want to see, oh, I'm getting married at XYZ venue. I want to see what I can do, or what other people, what other wedding professionals have done that either I like or I don't like, or something that I know I need to be on the lookout, saying, okay, I definitely know that this venue has a water feature that I need to either cover up or highlight or just completely ignore. So I think for us, the real wedding blog posts are our biggest hits.
And can you talk a little bit about what just overall you see as the benefits? Is it that you want these couples to know you better, get your advice better, or how would you describe what you consider to be the benefits of blogging?
Yeah, I think definitely so they can understand our personality. So besides myself, I have Lisa Owens, who's my associate planner. So she helps write blog posts too. So it's getting our company name, our personality out there. So people that maybe they've interviewed us and they're interviewing other wedding planners, we definitely say, hey, go check out our blog, kind of see through the planning process, see the kind of work we've done, and education tips that we are giving to couples. And sometimes that's the tiebreaker. And we've actually seen that the last couple of years, people saying, oh, I read your blog post, or I saw your blog post on my venue that popped up, and I really love what you did, and I want you to do that for my wedding. So I think you kind of see couples and other vendors reach out to us and saying, hey, I know I'm going to be working with you this year. I really wanted to see kind of your aesthetic, what's working with you like. So we also appreciate that too. And we also love collaborating with other vendors like you guys and doing guest blog posts. And I also love to have guest blog posts on our site too.
Great. Reid, what about you? How did you get started with blogging?
Well, it's interesting listening to Lori talk about it. And I think it's fascinating because I think we're kind of on two totally separate spectrums, but with the same goal, right? So I think Lori does an excellent job. And it was a reason why we kind of talked about, having you be included, right, in doing blogs regularly, rich content, valuable content. And while I obviously, produce the podcast and things, for education and for, the enjoyment of people and to learn things, I try to tend more on like the Moneyball side of everything. Like I'm trying to figure out getting the most content I can on my site, for Google and for, analytics and things like that. And then obviously getting, people reading it and sharing couples' weddings and stuff like that is an added bonus of that. But that's more on where I'm on that side of things. And so I think it's interesting where we're kind of like opposites, but with the same goal of producing stuff as much as we can to kind of build that world out. So I to answer your question, we started blogging. Videos are really hard to rank on websites, and it's nice to have text associated with that and keywords and things like that. And so what kind of originally started as just me horribly trying to recap weddings. I'm terrible at writing. I'm not good at it. I was going to major in journalism, and then I ended up, I think I have a minor, but like drastically reduced it. Now I have my brother Scott do all the blogs, but what originally began as kind of really terrible recaps of these weddings. Now we have, we do the full wedding recaps, we do a behind the scenes post, we do the bizarre wedding news series. That's a whole separate blog series we do, but just trying to generate as much content that way is where I'm at.
And I was a journalism major at WSU, go Cougs. And so I was actually a newspaper reporter back in the day before I started my wedding planning business. So I got to use my college degree beyond once I moved on from that career.
And I'd like to hear from each of you about your just emotional feeling about blogging. Lori, it seems like you embrace that role as a former reporter, and it's a good outlet for you. Reid, I know you've talked a little bit about how it is not necessarily something you enjoy doing, so you have found other avenues to make it happen. Can you guys elaborate on that? Maybe Lori first?
Yeah, well, I mean, I just love writing, and for me, my soft spot is for the real weddings. I love to look back, show the videos if couples have hired videographers, love showing the professional photos, and just really reflecting on that couple's experience. And if possible, I love to incorporate the couple's view. Sometimes it doesn't always happen if I have a tight turnaround, if I don't give them enough time. But I think to make that emotional connection for me is really big. And also kind of piggyback on what Reid said. Obviously, we're looking at it from an SEO analytical and, the keywords and things like that. But for me, before I even knew about what SEO and all that crazy stuff was, and that's a whole kit and caboodle right there. I just love giving back to my couples and saying, hey, I loved working with you. I want to feature your wedding. Because, not all of our weddings are going to be, magazine worthy according to the magazine people. We'll just put it that way. In our eyes, every wedding should be published, whether online or in print. And so this is kind of our way of saying your wedding was amazing and it really needs to be shown to the masses. So for me, I look at it more of an emotional standpoint. And then when it comes to like the helpful hints and tips and things like that, I just feel like it kind of helps me. I always tell my couple, like, if they're thinking like, oh, we want to hire a DJ, what are some good tips or things I can say? Okay, well, hey, here's kind of some background. Here's a link to my blog post. And it kind of makes that connection that way. So I like just educating my couples as much as possible. So for me,
Shouldn't it just be alphabetical by first name as they're searching for DJs?
That would be the easiest thing to do. I mean, but
Except for Aaron. Aaron is a bad luck DJ name, I believe. I hope there are. I don't think there are any DJs. Oh, Adam. Adam. We can't have Adam.
No, Adam Teagues. No. Adam.
I don't know any Aaron DJs, but we do know Adam Teagues.
Yeah. All right. I'll take his. I'll be his backup. I'll take the second. Reid, what about you?
Well, it's interesting. First off, like Lori was saying about publishing the couple's weddings, I also agree with that. Where I remember back, we used to have these videographer meetups all the time, and one of the questions that someone that was newer was asking was, do you put every video that you do on your website, like in your portfolio, to show that you're getting the most hits off of? And my answer was no, of course not, right? Because not every and although every wedding is amazing and beautiful to the couple that's having it, not every wedding necessarily is reflective, right, of maybe what people are looking for or what they want to see, and trying to have that swath of choices to see. But yeah, every wedding does get a blog post, they get a feature, they get a write-up that way. So that I think that that's a great way to, like you said, still feature the couples, take time, reflect on it, talk about everything, who are the vendors, what's the story, all that stuff, without necessarily saying this is part of the 15 videos I want to represent my company for the next 2-3 years. Alan, to your first question about the posting, and yeah, it's definitely not something that I enjoy doing. I don't necessarily enjoy writing, but what's always been important to me, and when I started as a videographer, and I think this goes to a lot of different professions, but obviously just speaking from my experience, there's a lot of fly-by-night videographers. There's a lot of people, I get stories all the time, someone disappeared with my footage, or someone didn't show up, or this happened. And I know that goes, DJs, I'm sure, planners, I'm sure, you guys all know those same stories. So it was always important for me to legitimize us as much as possible in every way. And so, being visible and posting things and having our names out there, goes to the podcast and everything else, but having us there. So it's not like, well, who is this guy? And you Google him and you're like, well, I don't know, like, what is going on? Like, just so the blogs were always just part of that. And it was obviously, you're producing the videos anyway, and it's trying to get as much out of the weddings that you are doing. And, if you're doing, 20 weddings a year, or 15 weddings a year, or 50 weddings a year, you can get 50 or 100 or 150 blogs out of those weddings, even if you are a lower, quantity vendor, right? Because I do think that sometimes that's a misconception, is, oh, well, some photographer does 100 weddings a year, they're going to have all this. I don't do that many weddings. I don't do that many weddings. And I do think even if you are a smaller boutique, vendor of any kind, florist, videographer, photographer, you can get just as much content if you want to do that. And just to finish talking, because I do feel like I'm rambling on here. It's weird. I'm usually used to being the guest, but just maintaining that visibility. And I think that COVID and the shutdown recently has really showed me, there are some videographers that I know that I literally have not heard from, seen from at all in 8-9 months, right? And obviously, you hope everybody is okay, and obviously everyone's dealing with all these things. But at some point, people are still booking weddings and are still searching. And it's just been really interesting to me to see across the board, what vendors are still here, what vendors are still doing podcasts, Lori is still blogging, still posting, doing social media, versus there are people that I have not heard word from since, February. So it's interesting.
Yeah. And sadly, there are some vendors that have gone out of business. And you just kind of hear through, I heard about one of our caterers that I loved working with. I heard it from another venue that they had gone under. So, it's kind of just keeping you relevant, and saying, hey, we're alive. We're still here. We are still booking. So, and, I think that's the biggest thing for us, is that we want to stay relevant. So when we are booking 2021 couples in 2022, we do have that content on our blogs saying, hey, if we are still having small weddings or outdoor receptions, or whatever the restrictions are going to be, next week, 2 weeks, 6 months from now, that we provide that information saying, okay, here's given the situation, here's a great way that you still have the wedding you want, just on a smaller scale, or how to, as Ross from Friends says, you pivot.
Yeah, people aren't going to book 2021 weddings in 2021. They're going to start booking them now. And it's the same thing. I remember seeing a videographer that was starting and kind of jumped into the business in like June or July. And you're like, well, people are not going to be booking, July weddings in July. They are going to be booking for the next. And it's the same thing with posting all this stuff. I would like to be relevant now to book for next year and the year after, as opposed to, waking up in a year and going, oh crap, I got to get some stuff going. And meanwhile, your website's gone down, your social media has gone down, all these different things. I mean, it is a lot of balls you have to juggle all the time. And it's easier for us, with obviously without a family. And I do sympathize for vendors that have families and are trying to juggle, but it's just more things that you gotta keep up. And it's a constant. If it was easy, I think everybody would do it. So
exactly.
Can you guys talk about the importance of consistency? I know that we've all had the experience either with wedding blogs or other blogs. You go there and the last one was from June of 2016.
Oh yeah.
How do you view the importance of staying up to date and being consistent?
It's huge. It's everything. If you aren't staying consistent and relevant, people are just going to say, oh, this post is from June 2016. This is not current information, or you could tell that they're not putting a lot of effort into it. And also too is, COVID's been crazy with being home and being teacher, principal, sometimes a warden at my house, and trying to figure out, okay, looking at my business, what are the main things I need to focus on? And sometimes blogging has taken a backseat, but having consistent posts, maybe if I don't have 8 posts a month, I may have 4, or I try to at least get 1 post a month. Obviously, my post was supposed to go live today, and literally with everything going on, it's going to go live tomorrow. So it's just, just letting people know. But I think too, it's with the consistency goes to batching work. And I tell my shameless plug for my other company that I help with wedding professionals with social media, and it could be blogging, virtual assisting, the social attendant, is batching work. It's real easy. And you don't need to write these blog posts that are, 1,000 words, because realistically, if you don't capture somebody's attention within 3 to 5 seconds, you're going to lose them. So that's why we always put a great, video up top or a great photo, because that's going to capture somebody saying, oh, hey, that's at my venue. I want to see more. Or, a great headline. But again, batching work, I usually take, 1 to 2 hours a week and really focus on social media and blogging and say, okay, what are the hot topics right now? Obviously, with the new rules with COVID, do I want to do new blog posts with that? And is that going to be timely once that gets published the next week? Is that going to be now outdated? So again, it's being on top of the times. And so for me, consistency is key, and just saying, okay, I'm going to commit to 4 blog posts a month. And then it's showing your clients and your potential clients and other vendors you work with saying, hey, I'm going to post every Tuesday and Thursday, or I'm going to post every single Wednesday. So people know to come back and look for it. And that goes to also, having some type of, newsletter storage, something. So people are going to sign up. So, if they see, oh, Lori didn't post a blog post today. Oh my gosh, alert the media, something's wrong. They get an email every Tuesday and Thursday if a blog post goes live at 7 a.m. saying, hey, new blog post from Elegant Affairs. So people know to expect that. And then I also, repurpose that for Instagram too. So that if they maybe didn't get the email, if they're not on our mailing list, they're going to see it on Instagram or our Facebook page. But again, it's knowing what your limits are and what you're capable are and giving that to the masses. Because if you don't do that, people are like, well, I'm not going to look back at her blog because she hasn't posted anything in like 6 months. And then all of a sudden she starts posting. So you just, set a plan and then you just execute it.
What about you, Reid? How important do you think consistency is?
I was going to say, would you like me to comment on that? Yes, I think consistency is huge. First and foremost, like Lori said, if people go to your sites, they're going to look and see, if the last video you had, on your portfolio is from 2016 or whatever. I mean, people notice that kind of thing. People are really smart. Obviously, I think this year with, I have not had a public 2020 wedding video just because of restrictions and limitations and things like that. But, I think this year will be different. But for the most part, I think you want to have, consistent content on your site that is fresh for people to see. More so than that, even besides what people might care, Google cares a lot about consistency. And that's kind of where, and I've said before, most of our blogging does go where if only one person ever reads my blog post, but it's Google, that's really all that I care about in terms of them recognizing that there's new content on my site and recognizing that this is a fresh, active site. And I think that that's important. I update our site at least, 4 times a week, 5 times a week, putting new stuff on, whether it's the podcast, whether it's the blogs, whether it's whatever else. And what happens with that is when Google, people always talk about, ranking higher and wanting to pay people to do all this SEO and stuff. Like, this is all stuff that you can do, for free. But when Google sees, oh, there's new content, and then they go back, oh, there's new content, and then they go back, Google is going to recognize your site and crawl it and basically like refresh it more and faster. And the more that it does that, there's a reason why like ESPN is like the number 1 sports website. It's because there's a billion people adding content to it all the time. And then all these people are reading it. It's obviously not a billion people are going to be reading our wedding websites, but the idea is, I see these photographers and they post and they go, well, I'm going to sit down today and catch up on my last 6 months of blogs. Like, I just did 15 blogs. Isn't that great? And it's like, you need to do that take those 15 then and then post them once a week, twice a week over the next 6 months. It does you no good to dump all that stuff and feel like, look at me, I caught up on all this. Google, obviously having more keywords and having more content on your site is always going to be better. But Google wants to see that consistently for long periods of time. That we, back in when COVID started and I was trying to figure out, because I was paying someone to do some back end SEO stuff for us. And when I was obviously trying to save money and we canceled that right away, I was trying to figure out a way to get new video production content that wasn't weddings, because obviously we do the weddings, we do the wedding recaps and things like that. And I just started this like trending in video blog. And I just, I put it on the corporate site. I don't even really share it because it's not even really, it's not even that like interesting. It's just me kind of like going through and like looking at like, oh, okay, this new thing or this new thing about, TikTok's got a new filter out or whatever, but things talking about video. But what I do is I go on there, I post every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And like I said, I don't even really share it. I just post it on Google. It doesn't cost me a penny. I post on my site. It doesn't cost me a penny. And our site's gone up. The corporate site, which obviously isn't updated nearly as much without the podcast and the videos and the blogs and things like that. I mean, it's gone up 20, 30, 40%, in visibility just in the last couple of months. And me not spending a penny on anything except just like posting content 3 days a week. And so what I do, and I hate writing, but I do force myself on that one to do it. I post my one on Monday and then I suck it through and I write the next one. And so then Wednesday I can post the next one and then I, suck it up and I write the next one. And so I'm always one ahead and it feels a little more freeing that way. But yeah, I see these photographers and I was talking with Mike Tobolsky, he's a friend, and he was trying to figure out stuff to spend money on with the wedding show getting postponed and all of that. And I said, you don't need to spend money on things. This doesn't cost me a penny at all. I sit in front of my computer for 25 minutes in the morning and I post a thing and then I look up an article and I write the next one. But what that does is it tells Google, oh, this site updates itself all the time. And so we need to update that all the time. And then when you Google like Seattle corporate, whatever now, we pop up because of that and it doesn't cost me anything. So, sorry.
My observation is that a lot of wedding vendors view blogging the same way they view exercising, eating vegetables, and maybe flossing. They know it's good for them, and they would like to be the kind of person that did those things, but they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
How do you overcome that for yourself? And do you have any suggestions for people who are just like, oh God, I don't want to blog? How do you get over that hurdle emotionally and get excited about it?
It definitely could be a daunting task. And you're just like, okay, I've run out of all my content. I've got to think of new stuff. And so then it's just like sitting down, clearing my head and saying, I've got to do it. I've got to sit here. I will set my watch for, an hour and say, okay, I'm going to try to bang out as much content as possible. And I just do free write. I don't do any editing right away. I just write. And sometimes I'll even do like a voice memo and just say, okay, here's some topics that I needed, we need to talk about. Or maybe I'm talking with a vendor and they're like, oh my gosh, I really wish brides would understand X, Y, Z. And I'm like, ding, ding, there you go. There's, a great content or two. But really it's just, you got to sit down and do it. And it can suck for a lot of people. It's the whole thing with social media. People know how important it is, like blogging. They just don't want to do it. So that's why, again, why I started my other company, just because I like doing this stuff. It's fun for me. And the ways that I can help other businesses succeed, especially now with, a lot of us are struggling that, 2020 was supposed to be, my best year ever. And clearly it's not. And next year I kind of, joke offhandedly with people. I was like, pretty much I'm working for free next year. And I know that's a lot of vendors. And it's like, we're trying to find different avenues for especially the Seattle wedding industry to survive, because it's been really hard. It's been hard for all of us, whether, you're a DJ, a videographer, a planner, a florist. Everybody's been affected, and we all need to come together as a community and say, we are one, we are going to get through this. And again, it's talking to our couples and saying, yeah, this sucks all around, but you can still get married. We're still going to have the most amazing day ever, just on a, it's on a different scene. And so I think for me, that's why I look at blogging as a way of giving back to my couples and even to my vendors and saying, hey, I loved your wedding. I want to blog it. Those ones are a lot easier for me to write just because I have that emotional connection to. But again, you just got to put your big girl pants on and just do it. It sucks, but you need to do it.
That's right, Reid. Put your big girl pants on and do it.
I got him on. To Lori's point, to the voice memo thing is a fantastic tip. And that was something that I used off and on, and I used a lot doing the corporate one was, and I obviously have a microphone, but you don't need to have, your iPad has a microphone, or your, whatever computer has a microphone. But, you can just go on and do like a QuickTime audio recording, and it'll use the mic on your computer. And yeah, just talk. Like Lori said, talk. And then, what I did was I would kind of pay, because I hate writing. I would pay, and you can, pay to like transcribe all that stuff if you really don't want to write, or else, you could sit there and just, retype out the stuff. But I do think people are better talkers sometimes than they are bloggers. But blogging should be conversational, right? Because Google doesn't want, wedding planner, like all these keywords. They want conversational things that are on topic. And so, yeah, like Lori said, just speaking out loud and doing it, and then either going back and transcribing that yourself, or you can go online and pay one of the sites to have a robot do it for you, is a great way to do it. To the point about, getting out and doing it, it's just one of those things you have to do. And it's, you need to figure out if it's not something that you're good at or you excel at, is it something that you're willing to pay for? And so, like I said, I don't particularly enjoy it. My brother is a journalism major, and I pay him to do it. And I pay him, like $25 for whatever the words are, and then $50 if it's a longer one. And, you might sit there and think like, oh my gosh, like that's, why would you pay for that? Okay, so you figure over the course of a year, maybe it's $1,500, right? I mean, if you're making 60, 70 grand a year, doing wedding stuff, at some point you need to figure out like where you're spending money. And if you're spending money on your website, or you're spending money, you could pay, I think Wedding Wire right now is, about $1,200-$1,300 a year for my category. Right. And then you have to pay that twice, because now, of course, we have to be on Wedding Wire and The Knot. You could take that money and pay somebody to do the blogs for you. And I guarantee you that would be a better use of your time and money than trying to be one of, 5,000 photographers on The Knot, all paying $1,500 a month. And so that's kind of where I get to it is either, you need to do it. And if it really is something that you don't want to do, then find, like Lori has children, find a high schooler that wants to make some money. Like I said, my brother works, and then he goes home at night, and it's an hour later, and then he can go buy whatever the heck he wants to buy. And it's a win-win, because I don't want to do it. So that would be my advice, would be if you don't want to do it, find somebody and find a situation that works. Maybe you could do a trade. Maybe you could do some photos for someone that wants to write, and then you can figure out that way. But yeah, it's one of those things you have to invest somewhat in your wedding company to make it grow.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm all about bartering too, that if it's like, hey, I'll write you 3 blog posts in exchange for a branding session. And, things like that I'm like, oh, that's a win-win for both of us. So again, I think too, if you're just kind of in that mindset, you're like, I'm not going to blog, pretty much not going to happen, but I know I need to do it, outsource it.
Yeah.
really easy to do. And, the other thing too, is when I blog too, kind of what you said, Reid, is that conversational. I never want to talk down to my clients or just saying, as a wedding planner, you need to do this, because that's not realistic, because that's actually going to be counterintuitive to my business. So it's, having that one-on-one conversation and just saying, hey, when you're looking for a venue, here's some, helpful hints and tips to look out for. And, those questions that as a couple, if you don't have a wedding planner, I didn't even think about asking. Like, I want to do this wedding in March. And then I find out when I get there, the venue's tent doesn't even go up till April. Well, that just wasted my trip, up to this venue, because I didn't even ask about that. And then you find out once you sign the contract, I can't have my wedding in March because their tent isn't up.
Yeah.
So it's just ways that, again, getting our knowledge of this industry and our particular niche and giving it back to clients and potential clients. Because a lot of people that do read my blog aren't from this area, aren't going to book me, and can be other vendors too. And again, it's just sharing the information and sharing the wealth of knowledge that we have with other people that from years of experience.
I would consider both of you to be among the more successful and prolific bloggers in this area. What would you consider to be the bigger challenges that you face with regard to blogging, and how do you overcome them?
I think kind of what we just talked about is just sitting down and doing it. Because there's some days I don't want to do it. And I just know, like, hey, this is on my calendar today. And I got my little sticky note on my computer saying, okay, Sunday is blog day. And I just like, oh God, I dread Sunday. I don't want it to happen. I just, you're like, can we just skip over Sunday and not just do it? But I think just knowing what content is out there that you can, put a fresh spin on, and just writing it. And just doing the damn thing, just because you need to do it, but it's just physically sitting down and saying, okay, I'm going to sit at my computer for the next 20 minutes and just free write everything. And sometimes I start on a topic for like, picking the best, music for your wedding reception. And then I'm like, okay, kind of like I do normally, I get off topic and then I start talking about something else. And then sometimes I'm like, okay, now I have 2 blog posts out of this one that I'll just cut short and move to the next week. So again, it's just sitting down and actually writing it.
A challenge that I don't necessarily have in our business, but I think that a lot of people might have, we obviously have the wedding videos, right, from our weddings, to post about. And if you're a photographer, obviously you have the photos from your wedding. But a lot of feedback I get when talking with other vendors about blogs is they go, what? I never got the photos from that wedding, right? Like, what am I supposed to do? I never got the photos. I emailed the photographer. I did whatever. And, my advice with that is always, let's say you're a photographer and let's say you do, maybe you're up and coming and you don't do a lot of weddings with people like Alante that are like phenomenal with sending all this stuff to you, right? Like if you do weddings with certain, photographers, you're going to get 1,000 images and you can do all this stuff. Take your camera, take your phone, and do behind the scenes photos. And that's what, I've talked about before. And if you're a florist, or if you're a calligrapher, or if you're a sign painter, or if you're, it doesn't matter what industry you're in weddings, but take your photos and write about it that way. That not having the photos is such like a BS excuse, I think, because honestly, Google doesn't care if you have the photos or not. They really don't. I mean, yes, it's nice. And obviously, for people that you want to make the blogs that people want to read and all that, but Google doesn't care about that really. I mean, it's nice to have those to make your site look good, but ultimately, you need to have the content there. And so if the idea is, well, I just don't have the photos from that, or I don't have the video from that, either, reach out to those people and say, what the heck, or just do that. But it's such a crutch that people say, well, I don't have the stuff. I can't do it. I don't have it. So that would be my thing and my advice. And literally, I don't think there's any industry in weddings. Like, I don't think there's any vendor type that couldn't do that and have the same success without, and you would never need a photo at all from a photographer.
And I think for us, I mean, the only time realistically where having the professional photos really matters is when we do the real weddings. And obviously, if we don't have those, their wedding doesn't get featured. Yeah. And Reid and I know this from a wedding where certain content was not, we weren't able to publish it. You know what I'm talking about.
I don't.
We'll go
I do. Yes, yeah. I do.
So, but here's my thing is, so like, say I want to write a blog post on creating a wedding budget. Well, sometimes what kind of wedding picture can you have? I mean, we don't do money dances. So when you see the couples like with money just floating down, like that's great. I did a blog post with that, but there's so many free sites that you can use stock photos that, again, Google doesn't care that it's not your photo. And again, you have unlimited use for it. So why not use a stock photo if you're talking about, creating, a music playlist or, creating a budget. I mean, I can name 5 different places online that you can get stock video and stock photos. And sometimes you don't even need to credit the photographer or videographer on there, or it's not even credited on there. So again, I wouldn't use that as a crutch either. Like what Reid said is if you don't have the photos, you can't blog. Well, put your little headshot. You don't even need to have a photo. It's just about the text that's going to rank you for Google and for your analytics. That just write something at the bottom. Just put, Reid Johnson, best made videos, and have a little blurb about himself. Well, he's got a picture. It's not ideal, but at least there's something.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's obviously you would prefer to have these photos. I mean, we would prefer to have all these things. I'm just saying, I just hate that as an excuse that yes, if you have any wedding in the world where you have photos, please do that. But I'm just saying that using that as an excuse is not, in 2020 is just not, with so many resources out there, is not acceptable, I don't think.
And I think it's the same thing too, not just for blogging, but for social media, where it's like, well, I don't have all the professional photos. Okay, well, like you said, take behind the scenes. There's presets you can buy, for relatively inexpensive that, you can take a really bad dark picture and make it beautiful. And as long as you have your client's permission that you're able to shoot on your own, then you're fine.
Yeah.
Lori, on your blog, your Real Weddings posts in particular are chock full of great professional photos. Do you have any tips and tricks about obtaining those from photographers? As Reid mentioned, sometimes photographers are very focused on sharing their photos and getting them out there, but other times photographers get pretty busy, especially given how compressed our wedding season is. Right. And if you work with a photographer in September, it may be that they've got all their summer weddings that they're still trying to edit and get through. How do you break through that?
First off, I make sure that I have a model release in my contracts for my clients, that they are okay with us using information. And we also include the blog on there too, and that most times couples are like, oh, I'm really excited, I'll be on your blog, or that's how I found you kind of thing. And then when it's finding out who the photographer is, usually with photographers we work with on a regular basis, it's never been an issue. But if it's a new photographer or a friend of somebody, I just say, hey, I would love, when you have your images, I'd love to be able to have the gallery, or you pick, your favorite, 30 or 40 images that you would want to have shared on social media and our blog. And most times, I would say 99% of the time, photographers and videographers are amazing to getting us images. And again, kind of depending on the timing of the season, sometimes we get photos back within 2 weeks. Sometimes it's been 6 to 8 months before we see photos. So we just know, like, okay, and I like to do everything chronological in terms of real weddings. But again, it doesn't really work, especially in a COVID-free wedding season, because again, I can get a full wedding gallery in 2 weeks for, let's say, a July wedding, and then a June wedding. I don't get those photos until October, November. So it's just, I like to kind of just touch base with the photographer and videographer, but not bug them, because I know that they've got other weddings that giving the wedding planner photos is the least of their concerns right now. But I also say too, hey, this is free marketing for you, that you're going to get, backlinks for your website, and you're going to get a credit on our website. So people are like, oh my gosh, that video was amazing. I want to figure out, oh, that's best made videos. Oh, I want them for my wedding. So we're also doing you as a service, that you're getting a free ad with us, and also recognizing the amazing work you did. And I've only run into a couple times with photographers where they have wanted me to pay them for images. And so then I just say, well, I enjoyed working with you. Unfortunately, I don't
we will have never work with you again.
Yeah. And it's been really interesting with that. And they're like, you can't even have the couple send you photos because they own the copyright. So again, I'm not going to ruffle feathers. It's their copyrighted work. then we just leave it alone. And then I have to deal with a couple saying, oh, well, you skipped our wedding because we know how you do it. And I said, well, unfortunately, we didn't get access to your photos. And I have had on one occasion, the couple actually tell the photographer, we want our wedding featured on the Elegant Affairs blog. So they released 7 photos to me. So 7 is better than nothing. Yeah. But again, most people want that free advertising and showcasing their work on blogs, not just ours, but anybody. So I would be very hard pressed now to find vendors, especially now since everybody's hurting for business, saying, no, you can't use my images kind of thing. So
just to touch on that too, because obviously we have the videos and stuff for our blogs, but if you are a photographer and you are posting a wedding blog and you are not tagging and crediting all the other vendors, you need to knock that off. And it's one thing where like, sometimes they like forget to do the videographer, and that's fine. I mean, I'll like message them and be like, hey, Arlene Chambers, like you forgot to, and she'll be, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, she always just teasing, but there's so many photographers that I work with and they don't credit anybody. Like they don't credit anybody and they don't, or like they'll list them and they won't link them or they won't. And I'm like, guys, like Lori said, putting the links on there, not only is great advertising and whatever, and people could, oh, who's the florist? Okay, whatever. But that, again, it tells Google all of these things are connected. And if you're on, like spoiler alert, like we rank pretty good for like wedding stuff. And so when I tag like other vendors from our weddings, like that's good for them too, right? And if you're a vendor and then you tag back and forth, but you would be amazed how many photographers I work with, and I can think off the top of my head and I won't, throw them under the bus, but like they'll just put, they'll write, 2 sentences or whatever, and then they'll post their photos. Oh, well, that's our blog. That's our blog. I'm like, man, you are missing 75% of the thing if you're not listing the vendors and linking between the sites, because again, Google doesn't care about the photos. I mean, yeah, you can put your little alt tags and whatever, but Google cares about the content and then the links that are on there. So you need to link not only to give credit to everybody that deserves it, but also like for a selfish reason, you are handicapping your blog if you don't do that.
Right. And I think too, that for me, that's big for Instagram too, because I see a lot of, and I'm not going to just say one category, it's everybody. Everybody needs to tag everybody. So typically what we do is before the wedding is we like to send all the vendors a tag list of every single vendor, even if it's a small vendor that has a little part of it, they're still part of that wedding. They still did a beautiful job that needs to be captured and needs to be reflected and thanked. So that's my biggest thing is I always make sure I find out who all the vendors are, and I try to get their website and their Instagram handle, because really those are only 2 that really matter to me, so that we can give credit on the blog. We link to their website, and obviously on Instagram, we do their Instagram handle. And we try to link, if we do it in an Instagram caption, we try to do it in the post. Sometimes if it's not a vendor, say it's a beauty vendor and it's a reception shot, I at least make sure that they're in the caption as opposed to the photo, but I try to do both. And when I share it to an Insta story, I do the same thing. I share all the vendors, because again, at the end of the day, whether it's any form of social media, and blogging is social media, the more people you tag, it's going to help everybody involved. So that's my biggest thing is it's free advertising. Please tag everybody. It's huge.
Yeah. Also, I don't care if it's like the restroom vendor that like brought in the portable, I'm talking like every vendor that's on the thing. And yeah, like Lori said, you would be amazed how many times I see all these shots from weddings and like, we're never tagged. Cause I'm like, well, it's a reception shot. Like you're not in the photo. I'm like, yeah, you're not in the video. Like get the photographer, like you're not in my video, but I still tag you and everything. But I see that all the time. And I've had weddings with like that 3 years ago that still get posted and tagged all the freaking time. And I'm never included in any of that stuff because, well, it's the video. It's the reception shot. You weren't in there. And you're like, well, okay, do you want me standing? Hey, no, like, we're all part of the event. And yeah, I don't care what vendor it is because, if you think about it, like, if it is like the freaking restroom people, there's only a couple of them in the area, right? So chances are, like, if you tag them and all this stuff and you have a good relationship with them, like they're also giving referrals out back and forth because there's not that many of them compared to, the 10,000 photographers there are. So,
yeah.
I would also say that philosophically, we are a team putting on a wedding.
Absolutely.
Right? And so a photographer gets great shots of a beautiful room because somebody decorated it and because there was a good florist, or you know, if
DJ.
There's a packed dance floor, that probably means that it's a successful DJ or those kind of things. So it's nice for a photographer to recognize that many people contributed to producing that moment that produces that great image for them.
What if,
Lori,
I was going to say, what if you don't include a lot of dancing footage in your wedding video? Because I'm kidding.
Well, then you should seek professional help and re-examine your values, because people don't need 10 minutes of what the green beans and almonds look like. They need 10 minutes of people dancing, Reid. So where we were going next, Lori, you had mentioned Instagram. And what I'm curious about is when you have a blog post, what next? How can you take that blog post and leverage it and get more traction out of it, more eyes, more benefits from it?
I would say definitely having a mailing list on your website so that people subscribe, so they know, like, oh, people that are on my mailing list are going to get an email tomorrow at 7 a.m. that, hey, there's a new blog post from Elegant Affairs. Then I also repurpose that information. I make a really cute graphic on Canva, and then I share it on my Insta story and, you know, promote it there. And I also promote it on my personal accounts too. So the more places that you can get it, and again, it comes back to tagging. So let's just say I do a wedding with Reid, and and we do a real wedding, and I'm going to tag all the vendors that are part of that. So then Reid's going to see, oh, look, Best Made Videos was tagged. Well, I'm going to share it on my Insta story too. So again, it goes back to that. The more people that you tag and include, the more times it's going to get shared around. So again, use it everywhere. If Facebook is huge for you, ideally our ideal client isn't on Facebook, but we just do it because it's just easy. Share it on Facebook. And then sometimes Facebook is a little bit easier because that can get shared a lot easier with people saying, oh, we did David and Krista's wedding, and David and Krista share it, and then their family share it. And it's just kind of like the telephone game. The more people that you can have share it and read it, the better it's going to be for you for, readership.
Reid, I believe you're on Instagram, right? I was going to ask you a question, Alan. I was going to say, what if
you are the guest, my friend?
What if you shared a podcast on Instagram and that vendor did not also share the podcast?
That would be a podcast that we could have for another day.
That would be
the etiquette of sharing podcasts. But for now, what I'd like to hear about is your approach to taking content and then expanding its impact.
Yeah. So I have a pretty set thing we do for all of them. We do Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest. And then there's like this Flipboard, which is stupid, but Kate Gasneeder got me on it. And so I post on Flipboard. I don't know if anyone reads it at all, but I just have like a plugin and I just click and it shares. But it's a pain. It's a pain in the butt. It's a pain in the butt to post on all of them. Lori knows. And it goes back to the end of the day. Like, these are things that we know that we need to do. They're hard to do, but it's a pain. Like, I got to do it on my phone. I got to do the Instagram thing. And then I got to shorten it to do on Twitter. It's all these different things. I know they have sites that, like, I was on Hootsuite for a while and they like post on all this stuff, but they tell you that you should be posting natively on all the different platforms that you are doing. And that's, take it for what you want, but I would recommend that as well. I wouldn't recommend one of these like, they aggregate and post on all the different stuff. I would log into each of that's just me because I'm OCD and I like to do it. Also, the reason why I do that is it's not consistent on all of them, right? So like if you post something on Instagram and then do like the share on Facebook button or whatever, it doesn't tag all the same people in it, right? Like it'll post it on your Facebook timeline, but it won't. So, I like to, like the Best Made Weddings podcast, I like to go onto Facebook, tag all the people, tag all the vendors. Well, if I posted it on Instagram and then just shared it, it wouldn't get that same, whatever. So that's how I try to maximize it. Again, I just do it all so we just maintain the visibility on everything, right? I mean, I'm not the best with like analytics of like where do I get the most whatever from. Obviously, if the couples are on Facebook and they share it with their family on Facebook, that'll get more whatever. But I always just want to have that base level of visibility across everything. And so that like our Twitter wasn't last updated 2 years ago, that, oh, hey, they posted a thing, because people Google you, whether people think it or not. Like if people are looking at vendors, they do look and see where they're at on everything. And so like Lori has said as well, making sure that you have recent stuff on all the different platforms is important.
And here's one thing too, and Facebook's really good that you can actually schedule your posts on Facebook. So I'm like with Reid, I like to natively post. Obviously I will store stuff like with Instagram on Planoly or Plan or one of those accounts, but then I manually publish it myself just because I want to have that engagement and not just post and ghost.
Also, I am always very hesitant about the scheduling things just because life happens. And I don't know, I just always have the weird, like if I schedule something for next week and then I forget to whatever and there's an earthquake or something. I don't know. I just always get weird about that. Like I like to know, okay, this is what's going on at this time when I'm posting. And I do think it's great to schedule things and like, we post Best Made Weddings every Monday, or if, and if things happen, it's in the morning or later, but like schedule, I just, and please like, don't quote me on, you can do what you will, but I'm just saying personally, I do worry about scheduling sometimes if, things happen and then you can't. And
I think at the end of the day, when it comes to blogging, have a content calendar. Yes. So you're going to map out, okay, I'm going to post every Tuesday and Thursday. And, I'm going to talk about this Tuesday is going to be budget. This Thursday is going to be David and Krista's real wedding. And, go that way so that, so you can create your graphics and everything beforehand. So again, try to do it all, set aside 2 to 3 hours and say, okay, I'm going to do blog posts. I'm going to do all the graphics. If you do schedule, if you don't schedule, or at least get it loaded in your drafts and Instagram, it just makes life a lot easier. So you don't forget like, oh my gosh, I did post my blog post, but I didn't share it on Instagram or I didn't share it, all these different places.
I suspect that both of you have heard the theory that attention spans are shortening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That people respond better to visuals than words, that people don't read as much. How, if at all, does that impact what you do?
I think kind of what I said earlier, I like to kind of have that, at least for a real wedding, I like to have that video or great image that's going to capture somebody's attention saying, oh my gosh, I need to read this. And I also would say the last 2 years, we've actually shortened the content just because I was writing a whole novel and nobody is going to read anything. So you need to be short, sweet, to the point, saying, okay, if I'm going to talk about budget, here are the main 5 bullet point items. And I'm going to break it down that way. So it's real easy to figure out. I'm not going to do paragraph after paragraph after paragraph. And that's even with the real weddings. I talk about, working with the couple. I kind of, I have a template when I'm going to go and I just have to change the words for each couple based on, their season, their vendors, and things like that. But, once you kind of come up with a system, it makes it very easy, but be very powerful with every single word you choose when it comes to blogging, just because you're going to lose people's attention right away.
Even if people don't read it, Google will read it. So that is my, I wish I had a better answer. Like I said, Lori does a much better job constructing those must read educational blogs, right? It's just the truth, right? You're at a higher, different level of that, of providing that service. I am much more on the maintenance, and this is something that needs to be done side of things. But even if not one person in the world reads your blog post, Google reads every blog post you write. And that is also very important.
Sure. And both of you have been extremely successful with, I would say, different strategies.
Yeah. And that's, I think it's great. I think Lori's, it's two sides of the same coin. And that's why I think it's really has been really interesting today to hear Lori's philosophy on it, and just because it's neither is right or wrong. It's two sides, and hopefully you are not as right-sided with it as I am, but that you can incorporate a lot of Lori's ideas in there. But I think it's two different valuable ways to look at the same solution.
Well, I think at the end of the day, you have to look at why are you doing blogging, and you got to focus your attention for that. Obviously, the way I'm doing my blogging is different than Reid does it, and that's what works for him. And so you just kind of have to sit down like, okay, am I doing it for Google rankings? Am I doing it for content-based? Whatever it is, there's no right or wrong. But what I was going to say earlier too, Google also likes more content. So it's kind of been a double-edged sword with us cutting down our blog posts. I have to think, is that hurting us by shortening it down, knowing I'm looking at it from a reader's perspective as opposed to Google, which I think I need to come to a happy medium.
Lori, what's your baseline minimum number of words per blog post?
Oh, it really depends. I would say around 1,000 to 1,500. Granted, don't go on my website, don't go on my blog, and then I'm going to copy it and see how many words. But ideally, if I can get 1,000, that would be great. But realistically, it's going to be between 500 to 750. So again, I'm trying to find that happy median, and I'm still a work in progress on that.
Yeah, I would say if your blog post is less than 500, you should not bother posting it because it's not enough. It's not enough. And I see all these photographers that they post 2 lines and then all the photos. If it doesn't have 500 words, it's a waste of a post and you shouldn't do it.
And realistically, it's an Instagram caption.
Yeah. It's not a blog post.
No.
I'm curious about whether either of you start thinking about your blog post, your real wedding blog post, prior to the end of the wedding. Is there anything that you build into your process as you work with a couple that finds its way into that eventual blog post? Like you say, we met at this coffee shop and I really noticed the way so-and-so looked at so-and-so.
I don't, at least for me, for the real weddings, I don't write that stuff down. Sometimes it will just be like, oh my gosh, I met them here, or I've known the bride or I've known the groom for a long time, so we have that connection. But I don't jot anything down. But if it's something where they're going to do something really cool and over the top, then I'm going to be taking mental notes and just saying, oh my gosh, make sure that the photographer, videographer gets killer shots of this piece that I know I'm going to focus on for our wedding.
So we do a pre-wedding questionnaire because not all of our weddings have such wonderful wedding planners, right? I like to know that we have, lots of content of what is happening where and all these different things. Because we just have a base level of information that we need, right? Obviously, if you have someone like Lori, we get a lot of that, but we can't always be lucky. And so we have a pre-wedding questionnaire, and part of that includes questions for the blog about how'd you guys meet? What was the proposal like? What are you guys doing after the wedding? I don't know. There's 4 or 5 questions on there. And then the couple writes those, and then we post that on the blog post. And so that's half the work is done. So what we do, because again, at 500 word minimum, so Scott writes 500 words. And then anything that couple fills out, because it might be, they might write a paragraph, it might be a page, it might be, we met in school. We just add that to the end of the blog post. So, every blog post is at least 500 words, and then it could be 700 words, it could be 1,000 words. And then also what we do is we have them put their wedding website, and I'll put the stuff from the wedding website on the blog, because that wedding website is going away. I don't know, the knot kills them 2 months. I don't know what the timeline is for when they kill those websites, but we add all that stuff on there. And again, that's not it's not a crutch to writing a blog. We still write the blog, but then we use that stuff to add in, and that's written from the couple, and that's great. And then it's usually really thought, they think it out. It's really well, written, and it includes a lot of stuff. And so if you were to read the blog, not as Google, but as someone that really, wanted to get to know the couple, that would also be really great content, because it is straight from the couple's heart about tell us about the proposal. Oh my God, we were in Hawaii and I was tired, and then they got me a bottle of water and there was whatever. But that's also really good content besides for Google. That is good, reading content that people care about if you wanted to get to know the couple in the blog post.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, I want to say I certainly appreciate both of your time today. I think it's been a very interesting discussion about blogging, and hopefully we've inspired some wedding professionals to dip their toes into the water and then take a big swim. Lori, do you have final thoughts?
I would say, lastly, if you are a wedding professional and you still, after listening to what Reid and I have had to say about blogging, and you still don't want to do it, but you want to, check me out on thesocialattendant.com, and we do blog posts. So let me know how we can help. But again, understand how important blogging is to your business and future business.
Great. Reid, do you have any final thoughts? How was your experience as a guest?
It was good. I appreciate it. I don't get to be on this side of the microphone very often, so that was good. I appreciate you taking the time to do this, Alan. Yeah, my biggest thing is, like Lori said, I think that's a great point. If you don't want to do it, find somebody that will do it, that will specialize in it. I know that there are a lot of people right now that are really hurting in business. And like I said, people are trying to figure out like, where do we spend our money, or where do we invest? How can I get ready for next year? And a lot of this stuff, yeah, obviously if you have that advertising budget, yes, spend it on someone like Lori that will do the work. But a lot of these tips that we gave you today don't cost any money at all if you don't really want to. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, I think there is a base level of money that one needs to spend to maintain the successful business of any kind, right? There are some, photographers in the world that have never advertised ever, and they do everything word of mouth, and they don't have a website, all these things. For the vast majority of people, I think there needs to be a base level amount of money and time and energy that you are spending. And there is no better way to do that than setting your website up for success and making sure you have content on there for Google and for, searches and all that kind of stuff. That I just think that it just gets lost, and people think like, well, I just don't even know where to start, or I don't even know, like, you need to start, you need to be consistent about it, and you need to take some of these tips that we gave you. So
great. And can you tell our listeners how they can reach out to both of you?
Yeah. So for Elegant Affairs, you can reach us at www.elegantaffairswa, as in WA.com, or my other business, thesocialattendant.com.
Great.
You Johnson? You can go to Reid at bestmadevideos.com is my email, but bestmadevideos.com is the email address, and everything's on there. Like I said, we have we have the blog, we have the podcast, we have the corporate side. If nothing else, take away from today the importance of just generating content and having stuff on there. There's nothing worse than going on a site, like we've said, that hasn't been updated in a long time. And I just think it's so important to just put a fresh coat of paint on all the time and keep everything, keep all the boards nailed to the wall, keep everything all in place and do that. But yeah, bestmadevideos.com.
And it's never too late to start. So if you haven't done it in months or years, start next week, start tomorrow, start today.
I was looking at this today. When COVID started, I started doing the, like I said before, the corporate video blogs. 86 of them I've done as of today, right? From whatever it was, middle of March, starting that, because I wasn't doing anything, right? And I thought, well, I'm not doing anything. But that's 86 blogs that hasn't cost me a penny that I've done that. So yeah, there's no worse, there's no bad time to start. But that was something that I just said, I'm going to get up every day, I got 20 minutes or an hour, whatever it takes, and do that. But yeah, that's 80 whatever blogs, just from when COVID started.
Great. Well, thank you very much, both of you. You've been very inspiring, and I hope a lot of wedding professionals take your advice and get off their butts and start blogging.
Alan,
thanks, Alan.
Alan, where can I get one of the Sweet Dragons banners?
Oh, well, as a matter of fact, if you email me, I will be happy to send you a picture of the Dragons banners. And if you go to West Seattle, you just break into Reid's house and you can have the jerseys.
There you go. Thanks, Alan. I really appreciate it. This has been a takeover.
It has been the takeover. Woo!
The takeover. All right. We'll see you next time.